Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Dr. Group, and today I have Laura Aboli on. She is a mentor. She's a writer. She's an entrepreneur. She co-founded WorldCheck, which is a database of politically exposed persons, which is awesome, and heightened risk individuals and organizations, as well as WealthX in 2010, which went on to become the leading provider of intelligence on ultra high net worth individuals. And in 2020, she founded the United Democratic International Movement for Awareness and Freedom, something we all want these days, which is UDIMAF.org. Make sure you go check that out. It's an organization dedicated to creating a better world through awareness, inspiration, and what I love, the relentless pursuit of truth. That's an amazing statement right there. Anyway, she works to inspire, motivate, uplift her viewers. I follow her on Telegram, and she's just really there to help people focus on how they can change themselves, change others, and change the world. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've summed it up well. I almost feel I've got nothing more to say.
I know, you're like the perfect person. I mean, you know, we need more of you in the world, because we're definitely on a mission, which I think is, you know, a very, very important mission of spreading truth to the world. But I know that and I love your blog, by the way, and it's the current situation in the world. We have lots of fear, lots of anger, lots of negative emotions. And you talk about the difference between happiness and pleasure. Can you, what is your vision? What would you like to teach people for the world as far as how they can take a step back and focus on their own happiness and pleasure and joy?
Well, I think that at times like these, where, as you say, there is so much fear and so much anxiety and depression, I think a lot of people are wanting change, but not knowing how to go about it. And I don't think we can change the world until we start changing ourselves. I think we are a community of humans that actually need to have a very good, deep look inside and decide, you know, why is the world in the condition that it is in? And we can go into politics and all sorts of things. And for sure, there's a very negative influence in society that has been there for decades, for centuries, maybe. And so that definitely is not working. But I think that each and every one of us has the duty to look inside and say, how can I improve myself? How can I make myself better? Because one person at a time, as crazy as that may sound, is what will change the world. And fortunately, and I think that you will agree with me, we are seeing that transformation. I think we are seeing a lot of people waking up to the fact that there's a hell of a lot of things that are wrong at the moment that need to be changed. And there's a strange process in that. I have found it myself. I'm sure you have too. The minute you start wanting to find truth in things, you start finding truth in yourself, you know, and you find things that you don't like about yourself, and you start making changes slowly but surely. And it's not easy. Nobody said it was, but it is something that I believe it is our duty to do our little bit with ourselves before we pretend something is just going to happen and change everything. And so when it comes to, you've mentioned happiness versus pleasure, there's been a very strong push for decades now to really deviate people from where happiness is truly found. And so everybody's looking in the wrong place. Everybody is mistaking pleasure with happiness, and they're two very different things. And you will find everybody is looking for the next hit and the next thrill and the next holiday and the next whatever it is that just makes them feel like they're happy, but it's short-lived. There is no long-lived sense of either fulfillment or joy in seeking pleasure. They're very different things also from a biochemical perspective, as I'm sure that you will know. Pleasure, releases dopamine. Happiness releases serotonin. And where I think it gets really crazy, and I feel it's almost like a joke from God, is that the more pleasure you seek and the more dopamine you release, the more neurons die. And so the neurons start trying to defend themselves against this death from overstimulation by decreasing their receptors. So that's where addicts get, addicted to things. They need to increase the hit, they need to increase the doses, or they need to increase the behavior that's producing that addiction. That's what's called downregulation. Then it becomes tolerance, which means you're an addict now. You need like triple the dose to get the same effect. It's all because of these neurons trying to protect themselves from dying because of what you're doing to them. Serotonin is the opposite. Serotonin actually downregulates, the production of the excitement of neurons. And that's where you get that sense of fulfillment, of peace, of calm that actually equates to happiness, longer lasting sort of feeling of happiness. But where it gets really twisted, I believe, is that the more dopamine you produce, the less serotonin your body is able to produce, because one downregulates the other. So it's almost a joke from the universe. The more pleasure you seek, the less happy you will be, which is incredible in itself. But look at any addict, whether it's substance related or behavior related, there's not a single happy addict in the world. I mean, we can really claim that to be a statement. So I think it's really important. I'm not saying that a little bit of pleasure here and there is a bad thing, but I think it's really interesting because it really helps you to focus on those things that will truly make you happy. And none of them are those that can be bought. And none of them are those that will release dopamine in greater doses. So that gives people, I believe, a sense of, where am I putting my focus in trying to find this very elusive, evasive happiness? It's like the donkey following the carrot. It never gets there because everybody's looking in the wrong places. It's the next thing you're going to buy or the next thing you're going to possess. There's completely different. With pleasure, there's always a sense of possession. It's always something that can be paid for and bought for. That's why in society it's being so dominant, this push. It's profitable, and it's short-lived, which means you're going to buy again or pay again. It's great for business, isn't it? Whereas happiness is the complete opposite. So there's a lot to think about for people here as to what is it that you really are looking for. Think about it. And if I bring it down to what's happening now, with the whole vaccination, people were prepared to take an experimental vaccine. They didn't even know what it had or what the long-term effects might be, just because they wanted to travel. That's how bad they're addicted to the pleasure of traveling, which is great, nothing wrong with it, but how much are you willing to give up because of it? And then again, why are you so desperate to travel? Are you escaping from your own life, right? Because I often ask people, it's great. I like traveling, but I don't have to travel to be happy. I'm quite happy with my life as it is. And if I can travel with my children and enjoy something, well, that's a bonus. It's wonderful. I am never going to take some experimental concoction, that I know nothing about just because I'm so desperate to travel. I think that's an incredible measure of how desperate people are or how addicted they are to this dopamine that's released when they seek pleasure.
It's you make a really good point about addictions. People are addicted to food, they're addicted to social media, they're addicted to so many different things. And I've interviewed a lot of people over the years that have conquered addictions. I always ask them, what was it that conquered your addiction? They said, for 20, 30 years, I was going to multiple rehab centers. I was doing this, I was doing that. Nothing worked until I finally hit rock bottom. I say I had to lose everything. It was almost like the darkest times they had to go through in their life, the most challenging times. And I kind of feel like that's what we're going through right now. It's like people are going, you have to see it and you have to go through the trauma and the pain and the suffering through the dark to get to the light. And I I totally agree. We're overwhelmed with addictions, whether it's video games or whatever. Everybody has their own addictions, and those addictions are the little temporary pleasures that people are dealing with. So what do you see that's going to be happening in the future here? How do you go about teaching people to look within and become awakened and, start realizing that, some of these things are affecting their happiness?
Well, it's not an easy job for sure, and as you say, we are going through that dark moment with humanity in the world, and with everything that is happening, and it really is, in a way, I believe the silver lining in this very dark moment is that people are taking some time to reflect. It's making people think, which is extremely valuable, because otherwise we're so used to a system where we're like hamsters on a wheel. There's no time to think. Where am I, or who am I, or where am I going, or where do I want to go? And I think that all of the transformation that we're seeing is making people start to think about these things. And one of the good things, maybe possibly the only good thing that came out of all of these lockdowns, was possibly people having some time and some silence to really think about all of these things, because that's the starting point. It's the same way as the alcoholic will never actually recover from the addiction until they acknowledge that they're an alcoholic. And I think humanity is at a point where we have to acknowledge our own terrible condition. We are in a terrible condition. Most of humanity is, like you say, either addicted to something. I mean, there's just laziness, there is depravity, there is lack of morality, there is lack of principles. It's bad. We're in bad shape. And so I hope that this time is going to serve to help people realize this first, because until you realize, you can't change it. And this is what I try to inspire people to do, is like, look at yourself in the mirror. And I'm saying, I'm not saying you're a terrible person, and we've all been there. We've all been guilty of wrongdoing at times, or wrong thinking, or not following the right path, or the more moral path. But it is time now, I believe, to sit back and take a look at that. And I think we have to start with ourselves, like I was saying earlier. So I always try to empower people by making them understand that we are so much more and so much more powerful than what society has led us to believe. There is a lot of the condition that we're in that comes from interference, influence, manipulation, indoctrination, and just layers of BS, basically, that we have acquired from birth, from school, from society, from friends, from all of the influences that we are exposed to from childhood. And so it's a time to shed all of those layers, which is painful, but it's something that actually comes with a lot of rewards. You feel really proud of yourself at the end of that journey. And it's not a short journey, but it's about facing your shortcomings. It's about understanding, yes, I can be better, or why did I act that way, and where did I acquire that belief, and is that belief helping me progress in life? Is it making me happier, or is it just bringing me down? And why is it there? And so there's a lot of introspection, which unfortunately most people don't want to do, because it's kind of painful, and it's like, oh no, I'd rather go and watch the football or I'll go to the gym, or I'll do some yoga. Well, yoga is good, but you kind of really need to do the tough work. And the tough work is sitting down and facing not just what goes around you and what is wrong around you. And maybe that's the first step. Sometimes we recognize that in others before we recognize it in ourselves, right? In my own journey, I remember there was something 10 years ago that really shook my life. A big change that made me, just stumble and go, whoa, what happened? And, and I started asking all of these questions, like, well, what is life all about then? Because I was going down this path knowing that I had everything figured out, as one thinks when you follow the kind of usual steps that you are indoctrinated to follow. You do this, you do that, you start a business, you get married, you have children, you're following all the steps that you've been told you should follow to reach this happiness. I'd done that. I'd done all of it. And suddenly the rug gets pulled from under your feet. You fall down and you start questioning everything. That was my case. I started thinking, well, who am I? Where am I going? What is it all about, really? What is life about? And, in trying to answer these very fundamental questions, these are the questions everybody should always ask themselves at some point in their lives. If you go through life and you die without having asked these questions, then I'm sorry, but I don't think you've actually lived as you were meant to, or not to the depth that one should. So in trying to respond to these questions, you start finding the truth about the world that surrounds you. And that inevitably leads to greater questions, and then leads to, well, what about me? How did I allow myself to be fooled in that way? Which is very humbling, which is great, because then you start shedding your ego. Ego is a terrible thing. It's one of the biggest blocking or stumbling rocks that prevents us from reaching higher degrees of awareness, of consciousness, and spirituality, is that we're very, very concentrated and identified with our ego. So, you know, shedding the ego is something that's really important. Learning to see that as your, I call it the matrix avatar. That's your matrix avatar. So you want to live with your matrix avatar and believe that you're just that, you're not really understanding much. You know, we are so much more. And when you begin to detach yourself from that, I think real change is when it starts to happen. That's when it starts to happen.
Do you think that kind of consciously, like a 100th monkey phenomenon, like what we're going through right now, is a great awakening in some people that are, let's say, on a very low vibration, like Tesla and Einstein said, everything is nothing more than vibration and energy. It's like, sometimes it's really hard to understand how, you know, people on a very low vibration, I'm not saying that to be judgmental or anything like that, but to understand, it's sometimes we say, I don't get it. Like, why would you do that to travel, like you said, or why have you not done research? And then if you have a scale of vibrations, they're looking at us and saying we're quacks and we're conspiracy theorists and we're like, they don't get us and we don't get them. But then somewhere in the middle, there's the group of people that are really changing, that have had the mom, for example, I was talking to last week, who took her daughter in and got a shot, and within 24 hours, she died. I mean, like, that's a wake-up call. That's like a serious wake-up call. What are you seeing? And I mean, do you feel like there's a certain group of people that will never wake up? And do you also see that there's a group of people like in the gray area that are starting to wake up and understand the truth?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I do think that there's a subset of people that will never wake up. I think that the indoctrination and the level of fear is just too powerful for them to overcome. And it is not those that one must concentrate on, because then we're using our energy in a lost cause. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But like you say, there is a group of people in the middle, which is meant to be between 30 and 40% of the population, according to some. I watched a very interesting interview with a psychiatrist whose name escapes me, unfortunately. I think he was from Belgium. Maybe it'll come to me. Anyway, he was explaining about how society divides between these three groups, like you were saying. And he said that it's in this middle group that everything lies. It's how they will tilt that will determine whether we actually make it through this dark tunnel and into the light, and the great awakening will become what we're all hoping for. I very strongly believe that's what's going to happen. I can see a lot of indications every day that group is beginning slowly but surely to awaken. So I'm very optimistic about things, despite everything that's happening, which seems very gloomy and doomy. And there's a lot of people saying, oh my God, Third World War and this and that. But, you know, like with everything, you need a big shakeup for people to wake up. And going back to the psychiatrist, he was explaining that a lot of these people are going to need a really big traumatic event, whatever that may be, to shake them out of this hypnotic state. And he called it actually hypnotic state. What was very interesting in the way that he described it is that there's a lot of free anxiety in people. People are anxious and they don't know why. There's a lot of anxiety around and they don't know why, but that's the way it is. It's probably stress related. It's related to the system of life that we have, which is very fast paced and, you know, very on the go all the time, always worried about money and paying bills and you know, there's a lot of anxiety. And the man was explaining how the minute you give someone something to direct that anxiety towards, they feel really great, because suddenly they can actually understand why they're anxious. It doesn't actually come from that specific thing. And he was referring to the whole COVID phenomena. You know, he was saying the minute you give people something to focus that anxiety on, they start feeling great. Ooh, I'm anxious because of this. Whereas before they didn't really know why. And it only makes people even more confused and more stressed. Now they know, oh, it's because of COVID. Oh, I've got this wrong. Oh, it's COVID. It's COVID. Everything is COVID. Everything, not like now everything is Putin. Before everything was COVID, right? And so being able to focus that loose anxiety onto something gives them a lot of pleasure, which is kind of crazy, right? But it does. And it's those people that will hold on to the masks, and they will hold on to the vaccines and to doing everything by the book, because it's making them feel good. Suddenly they understand why they've been feeling like this all the time. And so in order to break that, you need a really sort of strong something, event, shakeup. I don't know. I'm hoping not too strong, but you know, that's what the psychiatrist was explaining. He said, because these people are hypnotized, it's hypnosis. And the only way to wake up someone from hypnosis is to, you know, go something like that, like wake up. So it was really interesting. But I do believe that that middle section of people are beginning to shift in our direction. And I think that a lot of what has happened during the pandemic and coming out, and I think a lot of people have seen that the vaccines were not what they told us they would be. I think they've seen a lot of devastation in people that they know health-wise. They have seen that all of the measures have really served no purpose. Well, I hope that they can see this. And so slowly but surely, all of these things are triggering people to scratch their heads and go, this is not right, is it? And so I often in my Telegram channel, there are news that are so incredibly horrendous that actually they just make me laugh now, because this has got to be a joke. I can't even take it seriously. You know, recently, last week, actually Easter weekend, there was an op-ed in the New York Times that said something like, we need to forget God. You know, he's to be blamed for everything. We have to stop teaching children about God. And I thought, are you kidding me? Are they really printing this? And are they really printing this during Easter weekend? I mean, it was shocking. And how do you respond to that? You've got to laugh. What a joke. You know, and this is not about religion. People sometimes misunderstand me. I don't believe in religion. I've never needed religion. I respect those that do, but I do believe religion is another method of control. I don't think that we need any type of middleman between ourselves and our creator, because, you know, it's in us. And this is where people need to get to. You know, you are not this flesh and bone. We are these immortal, eternal souls that came from there and will go back. This is just a living experience. And so that connection is there, but we've turned our back so much on it. You know, we need to reconnect with ourselves and with that divine connection. So I do believe that the awakening is happening. I do believe that it's going faster at the moment. So I'm very optimistic about it. You know, I really am. And I see that in the numbers of people that follow me. You know, that's an indicator that more and more people are wanting to know some truth, seeking alternative perspectives on things, perhaps more objective, you know, information. So all of this is encouraging and positive. And I think we need to focus on that. Absolutely. We do create our collective consciousness, as you know. And so as much as it's important to be aware of what is happening in order to make the right choices, I always try to inspire and uplift, because it is when we start thinking and dreaming of that alternative future that I believe we deserve, can we begin to create it. They keep us in fear, because in fear, we can't create, we can't move, we can't act, we can't even think when we're in a state of fear or fight or flight sort of condition. We need to step out of that. So yes, be aware of what is happening. Yes, it can be quite scary, but yes, we can do something about it if we get together and we start really envisioning what it is that we want for ourselves. So I think both things are required. We need to destroy a system that serves nobody apart from maybe a few very right at the top, and start creating another system for ourselves through cooperation, through communication, through networking amongst people like you and I, and all those that are seeking to be awake and to understand and to research and to empower themselves. That's a very long-winded answer to your question.
That was amazing. That was very, very well said. I definitely agree wholeheartedly with what you said. They've been, dating back hundreds of years, especially over the last 100 years, with the fluoride in the water and the chemicals and the pesticides and insecticides and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all purposely done to zombify us and hypnotize us, and the propaganda that they've put out. And it's, we've all been kind of screaming from the rooftops about all this stuff for me, 25 years. I can remember, in front of the Capitol building with March Against Monsanto, doing a big speech about the genetically modified foods years ago and getting eggs thrown at us and stuff like that. And it seems like, though, since COVID, which is actually kind of a good thing, I think, because more people have woken up in the last couple years than I think in the last, it seems like anyway, in the last 25 years. So it would be great if we didn't have any of the mainstream media propaganda out there. I think we'd be able to wake up a lot faster. But if somebody's been struggling, do you have any tips for them, like how to go inside, or how they can, like, what would you tell somebody from the soul that's struggling, if you were to give them like 3 pieces of advice, like how they could really seek themselves internally or become happy or intent with who they are? Because I agree with you 100%. Everything is meant to take us outside of ourselves, religions and everything. And we're forgetting that the power is within us. The kingdom of heaven is within. Just curious of how you approach that with somebody from a happiness or a pleasure standpoint, or what kind of tips you give them.
Yeah, well, I tend to ask a few questions of people always, and one that I've asked in the past and people don't even know how to answer, which always shocks me, to be honest with you, is, how do you see yourself, or what is it that you would love to be doing? When you ask someone, what is it that you would love to be doing? Most people have not even dared to think or dream what is it that they would love to be doing. And that really makes them think, or start to think, wow, yeah, what is it that I would love to be doing? What do I think would fulfill me? What do I think would feed my soul rather than my pocket? What is it that I think I could do well, that would make me proud of myself, that I can contribute to society or to others? And so it's a really simple and first step to making people just think. And often, like I say, most people don't even know. And I said, well, how do you expect your life to change for the better if you've never even dared to think, what is it that would make you, feel more fulfilled or more content or more productive, or whatever the case may be? So sometimes it's about asking people certain questions that will trigger them to start going, oh, wow, I don't know. I've been so preoccupied with, my daily 9-to-5 job and children and school and universities and paying bills and this and that, which I fully understand. It doesn't mean drop everything and, go in search of what, no. I understand the realities of life. I'm a mother myself, but dreaming is free. Thinking is free, but it's also the beginning of everything. Nothing that was ever created started without being a thought first. So no matter where it is you want to get to, no matter what it is you want to go to, what to do, whatever the case may be, you need to start thinking about it. And as well, you need to start thinking that you can do it, which is another thing that I try to encourage people. When you are already past that barrier, I don't even know what I would want to do, which is most of the cases they don't even know. But once they go, well, when I was, and a lot of people will say, when I was a little kid, and that's very significant, because that means when I had not been indoctrinated, Or when I had not been fed into the system through this machine and spat out the other way, just to, become one more of the machinery that makes this world go round, supposedly, I wanted to be this or that. I loved doing this or that. And I said, well, maybe that's giving you the hint. Maybe that's giving you the clue. Start thinking, why did that make you feel so good? And start thinking why or what you could do to get there. Now, then I try to encourage people not to look at the end. Well, you look at the end result. Okay, so I want to reach over there, right at the top of the mountain. But how do I get to the top of the mountain? We'll start with step one. In the same way that everything starts with a thought, a positive thought, hopefully. Everything starts with the first step, right? It doesn't matter how long the journey, it could be 3,000 miles. It starts with one step. So focus on the one step, not on the fact that you want to get 3,000 miles away from here and you go, oh, I'm never going to get there. It's impossible. I don't have the car, or I don't have the hiking gear, or I don't have the, no. First step. What will be the first step on that journey? Maybe you want to climb the mountain. Well, maybe you need to buy some boots, right? That's your first step, if that's what you wanted to do. And so maybe you don't have the money for boots, but it might just take you a month to save it up. Well, you're already one step ahead of where you were before. You now have the boots. Well, that's good. What else do you need? And, you can extrapolate this very simple example to almost anything that you want to achieve in life by simplifying things first. So you have your aim at the end of the road, but each step, each mile, or each kilometer is where you need to be focused on. And you will find that when you start walking that path, which is led by your heart and your instinct, which is always going to be the right path for you, you will find that things start to fall into place magically, which is that wonderful synchronicity that some of us have experienced, which is wonderful. Because you have this idea, you start taking the steps, you feel it inside, there's this excitement in your heart, your instinct tells you you've got to do this. You start taking the steps and suddenly you meet someone that tells you, well, I can help you get there. And you go, well, that's amazing, thank you. And suddenly you're much further down the line. But you need to be walking it, you need to be thinking it, you need to be dreaming it, you need to be talking about it to people. That's how things magically happen. And magic does exist. I can assure you. Suddenly you see signs along the road and you go, that's incredible. I can't believe that I just saw that. Because I was just thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if this or that? And so with people, it just takes a little bit of encouragement. It takes a little bit of breaking things down to the basics and to the most simple to make them feel that they can. And we can. The problem is we have been told that we can't from a very young age. We have been told to focus on the little, on surviving, on the basics, rather than, well, hold on a minute. Who am I? What do I think I'm here for? What is my purpose? And that's another thing. When people think of purpose, we all talk about, I'd love to find my purpose. I don't know what my purpose is in life. Which is not an easy thing to stumble upon. It's not you wake up one day and you go, oh, I know my purpose. It doesn't work that way. But part of the problem is that people believe that the purpose has to be something really grand. It doesn't. It can be grand for some people, but it can be really simple for others. But it's still your purpose. And it's still the reason why you're here. It's still why you came here to have this experience, right? And it could be my purpose is being a gardener. I only found out when I was, 56, but hey, I'm happy now. I'm happy with my dirty fingers. I'm happy with, well, that's your purpose. It doesn't have to be something, whoa, that my purpose was becoming, president of something, or actually, let's forget politics. That's a bad purpose. So I try to unpack things for people. I try to bring it down to the basics, and I try to encourage them and really empower them, because we are truly wonderful beings inside. We just have to recognize that. We've been told so many times that we're not, that we're weak, right? Look how much they've drummed it into our heads that we're weak, that we should be afraid of a virus, that we should be afraid of this, afraid of that, afraid of tomorrow, afraid. It's like, whoa, no. Let's not be so afraid. On top of it, why are we so afraid of death? Why are we so afraid of death? I mean, I don't want to die, don't get me wrong. But the main reason I don't want to die is because I actually enjoy life and I have 3 children. And so I really don't want to go. There's a lot I want to do, right? So I don't want to die. But having said that, I'm not afraid of dying. Okay, you can't be afraid of a slow, painful death. Nobody wants that. But the fact, no, it's just a transformation to something else. Actually, it's just going back to where we came from. It's not the, I feel really sorry for people that believe that this is it. That, you know, you die and that's it. Full stop, turn it off, you're gone. End of story. That's a horrible existence. And that's another thing that makes, I believe, that feeds into the unhappiness and the depression of most people. If you believe you're just flesh and bones, if you believe the day you die, you're gone, if you believe that everything is scary and frightening and you should fear this and that and the other, I mean, honestly, firstly, you're never going to do anything with your life. And secondly, you're going to live a very painful, boring life, right? That's not why we're here. This is a gift. Life is a gift. So make the most of it. We can each do the most of it with what we have. And each and every one of us has a gift, has a different sense or a different way of looking at things or a different way of saying things. You know, we can all do things and we can all contribute, even if it's just with kindness. Be kind, be smiley. You're just making somebody else's life much better. Isn't that wonderful? You can do it, right? Isn't that great? It makes me really happy to make somebody else smile and feel good about themselves. That's what I'm all about. I want to make people feel good about themselves, because why not? And if you're not feeling good about yourself, then ask yourself why. What is it that you're doing or you're not doing that's not making you feel very proud about yourself? Change it. Only you can do it. Nothing is going to come and, you know, wave a magic wand and make you a better person or a kinder person or a happy. No. I'm afraid responsibility. You know, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. I believe that the world is in the condition that it is in because we relinquished the responsibility over ourselves, over our health, over our education, over our freedom. No. It's time to take the reins back and regain that responsibility for yourself. That's what we need to do. That's what will bring change. Knowing that we can and regaining that responsibility for the good and for the bad. You know, of course, when you're responsible for things, you've got to be there for the tough stuff. Bring it on. I don't want to be a slave. So I'll take my chances for freedom, as scary as it may be. You know, even if it's a little chaotic, bring me chaos. Don't bring me ordered enslavement. I was not born for that. I don't believe any of us were born for that. I think we need to change that mind frame.
Wow.
That was another long response.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Well said. You know, that reminds me when you were talking about people and not understanding who they are. You know, we've asked thousands and thousands of people over the last 25 years that have come to us for health advice. We always ask them like 3 or 4 questions and we say, can you explain to us why you have cancer? Or can you explain to me why you have diabetes? Or can you explain to me why you have migraines or dandruff or fibromyalgia? It doesn't matter. Yeah. And nobody can explain why they have the conditions that they have. And so we say, well, don't you think you need to understand why you have that condition before you understand the proper way to treat it? And so the next thing we always ask them is, well, what makes you happy? And barely anyone can ever answer that question. And then the third thing we say is, well, if you could do something different in your life, what would you have done? And then it comes with I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. I wish I would have spent more time with my significant other. I wish I would have spent more time with my spiritual growth. I wish I would have spent more time with my personal growth. And so over the years of just interviewing people, I've realized like how valuable time actually is, you know, because time is the one thing that you cannot get back. And, you know, yes, you can change, but you're spot on when it comes to people thinking and not going inside and thinking about how they can change things and taking responsibility for their own health. I mean, they really don't even understand half the things that are happening to them in their life. And you mentioned children. I'd like to ask you, this is something that I've got two boys, 13 and 15. And of course they've been organic. I delivered them myself. They've been organic their whole lives. And they're not, I mean, what do you think is going to be happening with the emotional effect of all these children being masked? And do you have any advice that you can give all the listeners about what they can do? I mean, I've even had people say, I don't even know what, all these kids are going to be sterile. Like how am I going to find another kid for my kid that hasn't been vaccinated or hasn't, like there are lots of, just a lot of tension around what's happening with this next generation and what's happening with the emotional component of kids.
Yeah, it's, really, when it comes to children, it's probably the one topic where if I have ever sort of been brought down, if I ever lose my, the spunk that you've just seen, it's when it comes to kids. It's a really sensitive topic, and I get really angry and really frustrated. I've, like you, have raised my children organically as well. I'm very careful with the things, not only that they eat, but that they watch and that they do. I've often said, I don't believe at any point in history has bringing up children been so difficult. It really is swimming against the current. I feel like a salmon, trying to, everything is against us when you think about it. The food is against us. The air that they breathe from the time that they're born is against us. Like you were mentioning, the fluoride in the water. I mean, come on. And then all the influence around them at school. Let's not even talk about education. Can we even call it education? I'm not even sure anymore. But let's not even talk about that. The influence through television, through video games, through everything that they're exposed to. Pop culture is horrendous. I've spent my life telling my kids, and I have a bit of a gap between my eldest and my youngest. I was busy with business, and so didn't really have time. So there's a bit of a gap. But I remember telling my eldest all the time. She used to say, "Oh, Mom, can I go and do this?" When she was a teenager, can I do that? And I was like, "No, I just don't think that's right. I don't think you're old enough, and I don't think that's the right atmosphere for you." And, "Oh, Mom, but it's normal." And I spent my life saying, I don't want you to be normal. Unfortunately, what is normal now is actually quite wrong. So be completely abnormal. I want you to be different from everybody else, because if that's how everybody else is behaving, I want you to be the opposite. So it's quite easy there, I don't want you following everybody down the cliff, right? So it is really difficult nowadays as parents that are conscious and aware of what is happening and all of these negative influences to really protect our children. I mean, if I could keep them in a bubble somewhere, I would, honestly. Right now, I would, because everything around us, in my opinion, is actually quite detrimental to their well-being and their happiness, both mental, physical, and emotional. That's just the way it is. And it's not just that I want to keep them like this, although I'm a bit of a hen, but it's just that when you see that everything around is like, oh, but look at that, singer, what is she wearing? And we've made it normal. We've actually made it normal for women when they are, celebrities and acting as singers and to really actually behave like horse. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. Why would any woman want to it's not like I'm ultra conservative or anything like that. I'm not. I'm very open-minded. I always have been, but there's some things that are just like, no, that's not what a woman is. And that's definitely not like a woman should behave, right? So I don't really want my daughters to grow up thinking that that's okay and that that's normal, and then you see little girls, in the shops, all the clothes for little girls are the same as the clothes for over 18-year-old woman. And you think, well, why should, there's also this push for children to become adults way beyond their time. Why don't we let them be kids? Why this push for them to become independent so early, to become strong so early, to allow them to see and watch and read things that are too soon, too much, in my opinion. I really think we need to protect them more, because unfortunately what is around is not very beneficial to them in any way, shape, or form. And so at least that's my take on parenting these days is be careful, protect, like I've had, protect them even from school. You've got to be on top of what they're being taught at school if you have them in any normal school. My kids have been homeschooled for a long time now, but if you have them at school, watch out, because one day you will go, oh my God, like, why are they teaching them this? Or is this really the best book that they could be reading? I mean, my kids tried school for a while, and I was all the time writing to the headmaster. I said, is this the best book that you really could find for our children to read? I mean, I could think of thousands of more beneficial books that they could be reading, right? And so you've got to stay on top of everything, on top of and counteracting what they're being fed from the outside. And unfortunately, and this is done by design, the family is very broken at the moment. The nuclear family has been broken on purpose because it really is our foundation. There's nothing that will make you a stronger person than having a family behind you with values, with a sense of direction, with a sense of morality. When you don't have that, you're a boat out in sea without a compass, without a sail. Any wave can take you in any direction, and you can be lost so fast. And they know this. That's why they really purposefully tried to break the family, and to a large degree, unfortunately, they've managed to do that. But family is very important for children to grow up. They need that safety net. They really need that safety net when they're growing, to feel safe and secure and learn. And so now, if you have that, those that are lucky to have that, I think our main role is to counteract the messaging that's coming from the outside. So I spend my life telling kids, oh my God, look, that, you don't want to do that. I look at that thing, that's quite wrong, actually. That's not the right way to behave. You don't want to be doing that. It's exhausting. I mean, it really is exhausting, but it's the only thing we can do right now. The way that the world has become is to always be there. Sometimes parents think, oh, it's quality time, it's better than quantity time. This is not true. In my opinion, with children, it's quantity. You've just got to be there. And the more you are there, the better, because you can see what they're being faced with. You can be there to guide them. You can be there to counteract maybe an external influence that without you, they might think, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this in, and by the time you find out it's too late to change a behavior or to change a thought pattern, right? You really need to catch it at the bud. And in order to catch things at the bud with children and teenagers, you've got to be there, and you've got to be talking. So turn off the television, for Christ's sakes. Make time for the family to sit around the table and talk. Talk with your children, find out what they're thinking, get to know them, to try and catch things before they become a problem. This is the only way to go about it. And then pick your battles. I always tell friends with teenagers, pick your battles. I have a good friend, and she's the type of mom that's on top of everything. She's a great mother, but she's on top of everything. Oh, put these shoes. No, don't put those shoes. No, put this t-shirt. Don't put that. And I'm like, take it easy, because your kids are now teenagers, and you've got to pick your battles. If you go, then it goes one ear and it goes out the other, right? You've got to pick the battles for the important things, because they're going to come. The minute they become adolescents, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of hormones involved. There's a lot of battles that one has to fight. It's just the way it is. It's a bit of a give and take, but you've got to pick them so that when you do have that battle, it actually has an effect. If you've been battling about everything, about the earring and the hair and the t-shirt, and you don't like this, and that's the wrong, I know we often don't like the way they cut their hair. We often don't like that they wear whatever it is that they're wearing. You look at them and you go, oh my God, right? But, I don't mind. That's okay, because you got to pick your battles. And so save the argument for something really important, which might be around drugs, which might be around sex, which might be around all sorts of, bad behaviors, right? And so with teenagers, I always tell people, it's a bit of a give and take. They like it when you talk to them as an adult. They like it when you negotiate with them, because it makes them feel like you take them seriously. And so it's like, listen, I understand you're growing. I understand that I'm going to have to give you more leeway, open up the boundaries of the things you can and cannot do, but in exchange, I want you to do this and this and that. I'm going to respect you for the adult that you're slowly becoming, but you need to give me back the respect that I need by keeping me informed, telling me where you're going, coming back at the time I've told you. So they like that because, again, the boundaries are set. It's easy to follow. Okay, mom or dad will let me do this if I do. I get that. That's easy. She understands, or he understands, that I'm growing and I'm going to need a little bit more independence, going to need a little bit more freedom, because you have to. It is the way it is, right? But you can always negotiate. Okay, yeah, I'm going to give you that, but you need to understand these things are dangerous. I don't want you going to certain places. If you go there, you call me. If you're going to be late, you text me, you tell me who you're going to be. You can set these things. These things are simple, but they can actually make a really big difference during that very tricky period of adolescence. That's some advice I can give around that. But with regards to masks and how much it will affect and has affected a lot of little children, especially, it's just awful, because little kids learn from our facial expressions and having, this, it gets me really mad. So people, please take them off, take them off as much as you can. Be with your children, talk with your children, because a lot of children are not talking yet because of the masks. For 2 years, they haven't seen your facial expression and your mouth, how it moves. I had an aunt, she was deaf. Nobody could tell that she was deaf because she could read your lips brilliantly. She could read your lips and she would answer, because she was not born deaf. So she just suddenly went deaf. And so lip reading that she could do is what children do a lot. They put the sound and the lip reading, and that's how they learn to talk. But if you're like this, come on. So just burn those masks, go to the schools and fight for it if you must. Luckily, it's all coming off. It feels that way in most countries, at least. So that's a good thing. But really tricky being a parent nowadays.
It is. For me too. It really gets to me with the children, But we just have to be there to help the moms, the dads, be there to. I kind of see a big role of ours is just helping people transition through this great awakening, when they first become awake and they really need help. They really need someone to kind of guide them through and help them out. I'm a big fan of homeschooling too. I've been homeschooling my kids, and it's just, you can, it's so much different. You can choose the real things that they should be learning: entrepreneurialism, how to communicate properly, how to meditate, how to be mindful of others, how to, there's just so much, like, basically what you need to know in life is not taught in schools. Just the opposite. Well, we're running out of time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending time today, all of your great advice. Is there anything you'd like to leave anybody with, like one last piece of advice for the world, or anybody else, or any of your information you'd like to share?
Well, I think, one of my, or at least one of the reasons why I started doing what I do, my movement, my channel, all of it was really not only to make people aware of the things that might be happening right now, but really to empower people to change, empower people to understand that we can make a difference. Each and every one of us can make a difference. We do. And it's a bit of a domino effect. When we change, we start changing those around us. They start understanding by our example that change is possible. We make them question things because they watch us become different. And many times they will resist the change. And there's a lot of people at the moment now that are going through really difficult times with friends, with relatives, because as they become awakened and as they become aware of certain things, there's a lot of pushback against that. People know you for your persona, your, matrix avatar, like I call it, that ego of yours, and they don't want you to change. And they don't want you to change because your change makes them question themselves. And they don't like that. And so I always tell people that's going to be part of it. keep going, stay strong. Don't let them put you down. Don't push it too much with them. Let them be. You know, you can't push change. You can take a horse to the water. You can't make them drink. So plant seeds as you change, but understand that as you change, people watch that and you make them question things. And there's a ripple effect. So I like to leave the message for people that change in the world is possible, but we need to start with ourselves, and we can all do that, and not to underestimate the wonderful effect and the power that that can have, because as I said, it multiplies. I can affect, or I can bring inspiration, or I can have an impact on a number of people who can then have an impact on other people. So it's a really exponential growth. Let's not underestimate this. Let's get excited about this. We can do it. So, you know, one step at a time, one person at a time, it can be done.
Thank you. You're an amazing person, and you have so much to share with the world, and you're making a difference in people's lives. And that's a beautiful thing. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Anytime.